do something this size.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Do something small, which is about half of what this one was, just to get a handle on it and understand what you can do with it. But I did add more gouache paint to this in this area here and a little bit down here. I did add a few more trees in the background to fill that space. But that's about all that I did to it. I did nothing up in here because I wanted that just to go away, but this became the focal point right there. But if you want to do it half size as a redo, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't know. I couldn't get that. That's, with the leafy feeling that you have on the trees. I mean, I guess you had that already. I don't know, but I just
had the
couldn't get
start of
that.
it. And, looking back at it, I was looking at how to break this area up a little bit differently, just for composition. So I wanted the feeling of the leaves coming out at us. So I intensified it with more cadmium yellow by itself with just a little bit of the gouache so that it would cover what's underneath it. But it's something a little bit different than what we normally have done. Okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Ivy, Glenn is here. So we're all here.
Okay.
All right. I was explaining to Judy about a color I'm adding to the palette, which is if those folks that are going to the workshop at Dillman's, I'm going to be adding this particular color right here. It's permanent scarlet. That's the, I'm adding another red. I've been thinking about it for about a year. If you don't use core paint, the other color that matches this is vermilion. So I just felt that we needed another red in there to finish off the palette a little bit better than what I thought it was. Okay, today we are using ultramarine blue, sap green, yellow medium, burnt sienna, and brown madder with, at the end, I'm going to be adding a little bit of the gouache to some of the paint. So we're going to go in here and we're going to, I think what we're going to do is we're going to work with wet paint on dry paper. The reason being, even though the wash is going to involve everything, is that if I stay on dry paper, in this particular case, it's going to be more intense than if I put water on the paper and then apply the paint, because then it will get watered down to a certain extent. So I am going to take the yellow medium here with a little bit of the brown madder. And I'm going to get that nice and orange look to it. And some yellow. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow up in here. So I'm going to start right up in here. Lots of color. As you can see, it's going to be a little bit more intense than if I added water to the paper itself. I add a little bit more of the brown madder to this. Okay.
I do that every week.
Our child is wanting attention. Then I'm going to take the brown madder with the burnt sienna and some sap green to gray it. I have to wait for my wife. So I'm adding a little bit more of the brown madder to this, and I'm going to go right into the background back here because it's a little bit grayer, I'm going to add a little bit of this color to that, which is the brown matter with the yellow. So this begins to recede back here. And then I'm going to add a lot of yellow to this in the foreground. I am going to wet the paper. I'll show you why and where. And a little bit more sap green. Now, I'm not going to use a lot of green because it's kind of like out of the subject matter as far as the amount of green that I do have. All right, now I'm going to wet the paper. I wanted this to be much more intense up here. So I'm wetting the area with the water. And I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow here. And I'm going to paint in a downward fashion as a reflection usually happens. It reflects down into the water. I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna and a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And begin that part of the reflection. And I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine blue to the other side over here. Like so. And I'm going to take a little bit more ultramarine blue again with the brown matter. Get kind of a violet effect. And I'm going to go in here with some darker color that is down at the bottom here. And then kind of just sweep it up so that this all recedes in here. And then what I'm going to do is that we have a little bit of the color out here being a little bit more pale looking. But I did want to put it in fairly intense. And I'm going to remove just a little bit of it and soften this edge. Because I don't want it quite that intense as this moves back. This will be the intense part right here. Cover up the white speckles here. There's a spot of light back here. And that is the first wash. So what I did, going back over, is I did not wet the top half. I started off with the cadmium yellow with the brown matter, a little bit of brown matter, but it's mostly cadmium yellow in here. Then the brown matter over here. I started adding some of the greens in here. I added more green than what's in the photograph, so it works a little bit better. And then I added the brown matter back here with the yellow and the burnt sienna with a little bit of ultramarine blue, especially back in here, and just allow that to creep all over the place. And then down here, I did use the water so it flows better. So with reflections always go down and the water moves across the top. This water is not moving all that all that quickly. This is the Kankakee River down in Indiana. And then just leave it set.
And what brush did you use?
I used the big pointed cat tongue,
Rosemary.
3/4 inch, the rosemary. I was thinking about using this one here, which is a big mop brush, but I decided against it because I have a little bit better control with this one.
Could you go over the bottom reflection colors one more time, please?
The bottom reflection colors, what I did is I took this color up here with the brown matter, the burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine. And since I had watered this down, I watered this down here. It's going to get darker, but later on it's going to but I painted this in a downward fashion, in a light tone, and then I took the yellow from up here, went down here, and then I added a little bit of the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna with this combination up here and put that in here so that it's just kind of letting most things run together. And it looks like the way that it came out is that I did have water up here, but I really didn't because I used enough pigment to make it flow.
Thank you.
But I used a lot of water down here. We had a beautiful weather yesterday. It was 45 degrees and bright sun. Today we're snowing, overcast, strange weather for winter.
So Dale, on the left side at the bottom, you went in with, yeah.
Yeah, I sprayed the bottom with water and I took this color, and since it had water on it, it became diluted down here. So I just brought that color
Oh, okay.
down.
Okay.
It's in a very light form, and that's why I didn't spray the top with water, because the intensity would be more intense without the water up here.
And then did you do that all the way across?
Yeah, I just brought any color that was up here, I brought down here with yellow down here, some of the green, a little bit of the burnt sienna and the brown matter down here. I didn't bring a lot of green down there because it shows here, but I didn't put it up where it's at. The green is kind of helps me gray other colors down, but I didn't use a lot of it. Probably have to use a hair dryer on this. Thank you for reminding me, Elise, to take a picture.
Well, I decided not to since you can't remember my name.
Yeah, Elsie. That's like Janet has Linda. That helps her out.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. He gets that from his father. It must run in his DNA. Because when his dad first met me, he didn't call me Marilise and how's Maribel. And he always called my sister-in-law instead of Cynthia, Cynthia.
It's in the family, it's in the heritage, it's in the bloodstream. It's not my fault. Any other questions?
Yes, Dale, on the kind of the left side, you've got a real dark little area right there next to the yellow.
Yeah, I added ultramarine blue to the color that I created up here to
Okay,
push this yellow out,
okay.
because that dark is going to recede quite nicely. There's some fallen trees back there. Whether I use those or not, I haven't decided at this point. I may use them, I may not use them. I'm going to take this just for a minute and dry it. Be right back.
Now, while we're painting, can you kind of give an idea what your thought process before you do a painting,
Um,
as far as your layers and
yeah, but what I'm looking at in layers is what I need to put down first to make it more intense, and then how I'm going to build this area up right here, because this becomes more golden looking and it's toned down. It's more red orange. So I did start with a little bit of the red orange here. But I wanted this to be more intense than even the photograph, so that this becomes really vibrant compared to the photograph, because this is going to remain pretty yellow in here. This back here is quite grayed down in the photograph, but this is still grayed down. It's still falling back. It's going to get darker, but I'm looking at when I put something on top of this, some of it's going to show through because I'm dry brushing this back here. So you're going to get a little bit of a grayed down sparkle back in here. This is going to be fairly dark along the shore here, so it falls back. Then I have to repeat this down here in a grayed down kind of a muted tone, because your lights get darker and your darks get lighter in a reflection down here. So I have to be sneaking up on it more. This up here is going to be fairly vibrant, but it will not equal this. This will be grayed down in the water, and it will not be, the lights up here are lighter, down here the lights become a little bit darker. So I have to follow that suit in painting this. But it's a matter of how I want to interpret the color. That's why I made this much more intense.
thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, it just, continues to add to the, when I'm doing my own, another picture or
Alright,
something.
yeah. Yeah, because this back here, Elsie, is going to be grayed down because it's a little bit more yellow orange, where yellow is a little bit more intense here, so that this will rise up and this will fall back a little bit, even though it's receiving the same amount of light. But this over here, in comparison, making this darker will make this look more intense than this. It's a relationship of values and color and temperature. So what you put next to any color
Painting.
will influence the color next to it.
Dale, how long do you sit and think about these things, your layers and what you're gonna do first and second and everything, before you start your painting?
Not as long as it used to be, to be truthful. But I do look at, I try to imagine a painting done before I pick up the brush. And that took a long time to figure out what I want to happen. Even though sometimes doing a new subject matter, I will do, like I say, a small rough. Before I go to Dillman's, in many cases, I'll do a couple small ones like this to get a feeling for the subject matter. If I don't like it, I'll try another one if it's not working the way that I want it to, so that the students are getting the idea of how to interpret the subject matter. So in some cases, I do something small before I even pick up the brush. This is like a value study with a color and intensity and everything that I would make students do when I was teaching college, where they would do a value study in pencil. I'm doing it in color along with value. But I'm always looking at how I can interpret the subject matter differently. And I will tell you, I've done this scene once before, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and I did it in the workshop at Dillman's, and I handled it totally different than what I'm doing here. It was more grade down, where I'm going to make this much more intense.
Okay, thanks.
I might be able to dig that one out.
I think you were in class when I did it, Janet.
I know.
Oh, you remember it? Okay.
You want to see my picture?
Yeah. All right. You could soften that green up in here.
Like add water all over it, or?
Just take a damp brush and soften it.
Oh, sight.
No. Oh.
All right, Dale, let me show you. Wait,
All right.
where's the kid? I can't see myself.
I can see you.
Oh. Well,
All right,
you see-
that's
see
fine.
the picture? All right.
Okay.
Okay, here's mine.
Okay, go ahead, Ivy. All right, everybody's on the right track. Just remember, when you're working with color, in most cases, you want to work more, in all cases, you want to work more intense at the beginning, and you can gray things down with washes later on.
Okay, here's my intense one. Blah. Wait, one sec. Oh, it dripped. Sorry. Wait, here you go. Look fast.
You want this to be more flowing down here. You've got
Oh,
rainbow stripes showing up, so soften it a little bit.
well, it's dripping like
What's that?
it's dripping like crazy.
Well, that's good, because now you can soften it easily.
So should I spray it more?
Yeah, just the bottom,
Right.
and leave it flat.
I'll leave it flat, don't tilt it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, Dale. Mine's a mess.
All right, you're fine. Yeah, no problem, Judy.
Okay.
When I first started demonstrating with the limited amount of equipment we had, I was painting on an easel upright at all times. So I had to really be careful about the amount of water I added, because Marilee was shooting over my shoulder at the time instead of above. And we got this piece of equipment, I can hang things over the desk and work flat, because you really should be working flat up to a certain point. When I'm working in a studio by myself, I start off always flat, and then if I feel I need to put it up on an easel because I'm working drier, I'll put it up on an easel. But usually I can work flat from beginning to end with no problem. I think I'm only waiting for Sydney. All right, good. That's where you want to be. You have more green in the foreground, but that's fine. That's not a problem. Okay. Is there anybody else I missed here? I don't think so. All right, good. We do have a barn next week that we're doing in the snow. And I'm going to show it to you now if you can see this. And with a lot of trees and stuff. It's a snow scene, and it's got a lot of blues and blue grays in it. But it's what they call a hill barn, where it's built into the hill and you go underneath the barn, underneath here. But I'm going to be, we'll be sending that out soon too. Okay. Let's go back. And I'm going to go back in this area first and tease up against this here, so that we can get that part finished. I'm going to take a smaller brush, and I'll probably use the toothbrush, but I'm going to take my smaller pointed oval from Rosemary, and I'm going to use my number 5 round. And I'm going to start by taking the brown matter and some of the yellow medium and a little bit of the ultramarine blue to gray and some burnt sienna. A little bit more yellow. And I'm going to take a little bit more ultramarine blue. So I'm going to mix it in one part over here and have 2 colors mixed in together here. Now, I'm going to take this color, a little bit more yellow in it. There we go. That's better. And I'm going to start by dry brushing this in. And as I said before, I'm dry brushing, I'm pushing this up against the yellow here to show these leaves kind of hanging over. And as I move around, I'm going to add a little bit more color change to this. As I move up, because we're getting a little bit more color in the light. So all this dry brushing becomes, kind of makes the leaves look a little bit more lacy. I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine in this area over here, because it gets a little bit darker. And I'm not covering everything. Then I'm going to add a little bit more yellow with the brown matter up at the top, drag some of this ultramarine up here to gray it. And dry brush this into that area. Now I'm going to take a lot of ultramarine. And I'm going to mix it down here in a different place with the brown matter. I'm going to get kind of a grayed down violet look to it. There we go. And I'm going to tease this into here. Now this is where the toothbrush comes in. I'm going to take the toothbrush and just wet this area a little bit so it continues to be soft. And I'm going to just kind of tease this in a little bit to create that shoreline, making sure that the shoreline is running always horizontal, that it's not going uphill or downhill. I'm going to take a little bit more ultramarine blue, and I'm going to put it right in here to emphasize that darkness over here that I want to push out the subject matter. And I'm not going to make it a flat value. I'm making it a dry brush effect on here. And then I'm going to take the smaller brush at that point. And I'm going to tease in some of these other colors just a little bit here and there for this. I'm going to take the brown matter, and I want to see a little bit more color up in here, up against the foliage in the foreground. We're not showing any sky up here, so we're not worried about that blue coming through. Now I want to show you close up what this looks like before I go anywhere. You can see that. So there's a lot of color in there. Now I'm going to take the color of this here that's up in there with the blue, and I am going to put it right underneath here and bring that across like so. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the toothbrush just along the bottom, and I'm going to let this run so that that remains soft. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these colors down for another wash. That's reflecting only in that sequence right there. And then softly connect it to the other part right here without working this too much. And I do want to add a little bit more darkness up in here. And I'm going to leave it alone. And that's as much as I'm going to do. And let's see if I can get that light off of this. So you can see I put these colors up here in a muted form down here. Then I softened it up against the yellow paint that's off over here. And I'm making sure that I don't have a hard edge. So I kept this very soft with a damp brush. But I took the immediate colors that I mixed up with the yellow medium, the brown matter, and a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And I took the brush and I fuzzed it in this way here, not from here out, but doing it in. So we're getting some of these laciness of the leaves in here.
And can you review the colors you started with, please?
I started off with the brown matter, the yellow medium, and a little bit of the burnt sienna up in here. And I took the more ultramarine down in here with that same mixture, which was right in here. And then I added a little bit more of the ultramarine blue for this part here. Then I started adding more yellow and the brown matter up in here with a little bit of the burnt sienna. So you're seeing just a little bit of what's going on in there color-wise. But I dry brushed it in so that you're seeing colors that I originally put down. So don't try to cover it. What I'm going to do at this part here is I'm going to lift just a little bit of that because it's still damp with my 1-inch brush. And I'm lifting ever so slightly. It's the last thing you want to do. I'm not going to put those logs in back there, but I want to see a little bit of light reflection. If it's too light, I can cover it up later on. So I'm just taking this in sections so that I'm not jumping all the way across the painting at the same time. And you can still see this yellow is kind of hazed out in here as it is in the photograph. That's the way I want to try to keep it. So,
Dale,
yes,
oh, it looks like you've got some green in that area that you just worked on.
right here.
Yeah.
And it showed, that's because I used the yellow and the blue together. And it showed up as a very, very muted green.
Okay.
Very muted. You could see it ever so slightly in certain areas.
Okay, great.
There's a little bit of green in the photograph. Not overly concerned about it. I might I'll put in some darker trees back in here later on in the final thing, but that happened automatically when I was putting one color next to the other. They kind of merged, and we had a little bit of that green effect, which there is in the photograph.
Okay.
But I always try to make the dark areas semi-interesting, but never really interesting, because we don't see that many value changes in a dark area. We see them always in the light areas. So I'm always very careful about not overstating things in the dark area.
Okay.
Try to keep it muted. As simple as this photograph is, the amount of complication you put in on it determines how far you want to take it. There's a lot of different things you can do with foliage. The idea is not to take it too far sometimes, because then you can mess up the painting.
Yeah, you didn't do anything in the middle, did you?
No, I did nothing from this point on. I just made sure that this area right here merged softly with this. I didn't want anything to be hard edged anywhere at this point, except right up in here. And that I'm going to modify again as I move through the painting. And Elsie, to answer your question a little bit further about what I think about before I start the painting, occasionally I'll have no thoughts whatsoever and try to go into it with just kind of a fresh mind and not have anything predetermined and just see what happens. It's only paper. Sometimes it comes out, sometimes it doesn't. And that's when I'm playing in the studio with the subject matter and decide I want to do something a little bit different. And other times, if you overthink a painting, that's probably the worst thing you can do. Always allow some doors to open for you while you're painting in here. And sometimes the painting will tell you what your next step is without at a certain point as you go through the painting, like halfway through or 3/4 of the way through. Sometimes I allow the painting to tell me what I need to do.
I'm ready.
All right, let's see what you got. Just a minute. Oh, that's nice. Okay, good. I like the way you've got some of the violet showing up in there in the water.
Looks like a real watercolor.
Yeah, but that's fine. Like I always tell people, I mean, a lot of people get concerned about it doesn't look like the photograph. Well, it's not supposed to. Let me get a picture here of what's going on. I had an assignment when I was teaching college that the students were not allowed to use the colors that they saw in the photo references, but they had to make it look real within itself. And it was interesting assignment for them because they had to get away from color and rely totally on value.
Do I have enough dark or enough color on this side over here?
Yeah, you're fine over there.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'm not even looking at the picture.
Sometimes I try not to stare at the picture too long because it will influence you and slow you down in your creative process to a certain degree. And it does take time. You know, I was very much relying on the photograph when I was a student, and I found out I was relying too much. And sometimes I would do a value study, study the photograph, and then put the photograph away and paint the painting halfway through, and then look at the photograph halfway through. So I would not be tied to the photograph.
Okay,
All right. Okay, you still need to add more color down here.
more color?
Yeah, you want to take the color that you used up on top and allow it to fall down.
Okay. So more,
More of the burnt sienna, the brown madder, and the little bit of the ultramarine blue and the yellow. Different combinations. How you doing, Ivy? Okay. All right, you're fine. You're doing well. Step by step. There's times that your painting doesn't work out. Doesn't mean you can't start it over. And occasionally I have to tell the student it didn't work out and start over.
Can I talk to him for a minute?
Okay, my handler wants to talk to you.
All right, I went to YouTube and clicked on the video, and it plays all the way through for me.
So you need to.
I got nothing, and I even tried to cheat and copy the,
The URL?
yeah, and it still didn't go in.
Yeah, because here it is playing.
Layer on the background. I'm using the side of the brush.
I got the same thing. I did the same thing. I tried to copy the URL and put it in. It just didn't work.
Okay, I always give our own personal URL. It's called a bit.ly. Then you can see how many people have watched the video.
Yeah, I put that in the front too.
So what I'll do is send you guys the link that they give me when I upload a video. And that's a little longer. So I will send that to you next. Maybe it's the bit.ly that's doing it, but I clicked the bit.ly and it took me to this. So I'll keep on trying. All right, I'm done, Dale.
All right, thanks.
Send it back out.
Well, I'm gonna send them the link. Yeah.
Okay. She's gonna send you the link and hopefully it'll play for you. It's interesting that none of you could make it play.
I haven't tried it yet.
It's the Russians.
Oh, did you want to see mine, Dale? I'm,
Yes. Go ahead, Deborah.
Not happy, not happy.
All right, good. Your side of the reflection is fine from what you're going to get it darker later on, but you're fine right now, so leave it alone. Anybody else?
I saw anything wrong.
Want to see my,
Okay, much better, Elsie. Merely found,
I forgot to click one button,
merely forgot to click one button.
so it should work now.
It should work now.
Sorry.
And she's not even part Russian.
Closest is Ukrainian,
Yeah, she's part Ukrainian.
German, Scotch, Irish, English, French, Romanian, Greek, and Native American Indian.
She's 1% Native American Indian.
Ooh,
I think you're all American. That's it. You were born and raised here. You're all American.
Oh, I agree. I just been playing.
Oh, I agree, but that
genealogy.
1% Native American allows us to open up a casino on our property.
It's gonna be called Watercolor Falls.
Okay, anybody else have something?
I do.
Okay, coming back up. All right, that's good. This part that goes right into here where I dry brushed it in a little
Yes.
bit more, get it on the angle that it feels like it's really overhanging. So it's on an angle like this here.
Oh, okay.
You've got it a
Okay.
little bit more like this. And it just, the reason why I'm saying it adds a little bit more dramatic response to the photograph. And then this dark gets tucked underneath here a little bit more.
Okay.
It's a minor thing, but sometimes an angle of the landscape or whatever gives it a little bit more of a dramatic look to it than something that is more vertical.
Okay.
Sometimes exaggeration is good. Did I see yours, Ivy?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. And then you started telling me how it's okay to start over.
Well, no, not on this one.
Okay.
Fine. Janet, how are you doing? I know. You have that lovely smile.
I did start over, but I caught that with your feedback to Ivy. I didn't say anything, but I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Can you show me what you have?
I should start over. My gosh.
All right, now bring this color here, bring it
Yeah.
down into here.
Yeah,
Just wash it down.
that's a good idea.
Just keep everything very vertical on that reflection. Just remember, it's always getting the primary and secondary masses set, because anybody can put detail on top of that and make it look right. But if you don't get the primary and secondary masses right, it's a hard thing to save. And that's what we're working on primarily at this point.
From a distance, you look like you have a pine tree in there.
Oh, right here?
Yeah,
Yeah, it kind of looks like that, doesn't it?
yeah.
That's right, I'll make it go away. I mean, it could be. But there are no pines down there at that point. But nobody would know that otherwise.
Plus it makes it look, it makes the rest of the thing look bigger than what's supposed to be in the picture.
Yeah, it does. But there's also, I have 7 or 8 little kids along here too. Can you see those?
Yeah, that's true. I'm always finding faces in my pictures.
Yeah, I know. You can always find faces. Look into the clouds, Elsie. Anybody else I haven't gotten to? Because then I'm going to go ahead. There's nobody else to check. Janet, do I need to look at yours again? All right, that's better. Yeah. Okay. We're going to go ahead. And I am going to work the shoreline here. I'm not going to touch really any of this down here, but I'm going to work the shoreline and the trees up here first. And I'm going to take my calligraphy brush here. And I'm going to take this red orange here. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to it. And I'm going to grab a little bit of that color that would help me gray it down. And I'm going to dry brush this over here. This is going to take a little bit more work than the other parts. And I'm going to dry brush this up in here. And when I'm dry brushing in different directions. I'm also trying to get rid of these white specks. And use a little bit more water, gray it down just a little bit more with what I already have. And I'm going to gray this down here. And then I'm going to lightly wash in with a more of a damp brush so that we don't get too much dry brushing done, because then it becomes too busy off to the side. And I'm going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue with the brown matter. It's got kind of a maroonish look to it. And I'm going to go in underneath here, which grays it down a little bit more. And you're seeing going into the woods a little bit more, and bring some of that up into the trees there. And it helps me get rid of the green that I didn't really like up there. So I'm going to dry brush this down into the landmass here so that I don't have too much going on. Then I'm going to add more yellow to this yellow orange up here. And we're going to get a little bit more yellow as we come out because we're getting a little bit more light. I'm going to dry the brush off a little bit more. I'm going to take the toothbrush, going to take a little bit of the brown matter here, mix it in with the yellow that I had up there, and I'm going to spritz this in here with a little bit of color. And then I'm going to start adding a little bit more yellow. And I'm going to dry the brush off on the paper towel. And again, teasing out, and I'm doing this in phases as I come out, that it starts a little bit darker, a little bit grayer back here, a little bit more intense and warmer as it comes out towards the edge here. Take a little bit of this gray color for down at the bottom where we're receiving less light. And then I'm going to take a little bit more yellow, mix up a new batch, taking a little bit from the old batch to slightly gray it. And I'm adding a lot more yellow out here. Take a little bit of the color that had the maroon in it, and I'm going to gray this up here just a little bit. And dry the brush off, and then tease this on out in a much lighter form with water, just water on the brush. I'm dragging that color out. And I'm going to drag that color back in. So I'm adding a little bit of that maroon underneath here to the shoreline. And then just with a damp brush with a little bit of color on it, I'm going to bring this out to the edge here, like so. And then we have a little bit of more yellow showing on the ground down here on the bank of the river. And I'm going to add a little bit more yellow in those areas with a little bit of grayed down color as I hit the water down here. Now, I'm not going to do anything with the water at this point. I just want to create the shoreline with muted color, very light down here. I'll worry about the water in the next phase. But I'm going to add a little bit of darkness underneath. It's not in the photograph, but I'm going to add a little bit more darkness to this up in here. So it kind of comes underneath a little bit more. And I'm going to add a little bit of darkness here, but I'm not going to connect it with this. I just want to add a little bit of contrast of value underneath here. Like so. And I want to take the toothbrush up in this area, and then I'll stop. I want to bring a little bit of softness up in there with some leaves that are protruding out that should come up. Leave it there just a little bit. And I'm going to pull up probably twice, just some frilliness of some individual leaves. A little bit more water. Leave it sit there just a little bit. Like so. And taking my number 5 brush here. I was waiting for this to dry a little bit. Taking the ultramarine blue and the brown matter. and a little bit of burnt sienna, not too much. And I want to bring in some darkness underneath or where the land mass meets the river, where you have a little bit of darkness showing. And I'm going to bring up a few little saplings up in here to break this area up. And I think that's where we're going to leave it. So I started off over here with some brown matter, some of the yellow with a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And I just slightly graded. So I started graying that color and I started adding more yellow to that as I came out. I grayed a little bit of it here. So we have this feeling of something coming at you, something going away, falling back. And then I took the brown matter, the ultramarine blue again, with a little bit of burnt sienna. And I created this color and put it in here while this was still wet. And I kind of teased it up into there and dry brushed it at the bottom. So we have a soft edge, we have a sharper, harder edge here. And then teased it out to here, created the bank with some of the basic colors that I used up here, watered down so that the bank is lighter. And then I added more water in here with the toothbrush pulled out a little bit. And then I added that dark along the bank here. So you have that feeling that the water is going underneath the bank. It goes in the shadow a little bit. So we're getting a lot of various colors up into the tree. It's not as muted as it is in the photograph, but again, you're not painting a photograph. I'm giving my interpretation of what I feel I want to be there. I am going to go clean the water real quick. I did. Elsie's not been doing her job. She's supposed to remind me. She's younger than I am. So that one thing that you did was the problem.
Yeah.
just remember 90% of the time, you really want to keep things as soft as you can on your edges for as long as you can. And sharpen up things where they need to be as you move through the painting. Sorry.
I want to take a look, Dale, and
Yes.
maybe I can work on it more.
I just lost you, Deborah. Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Okay. See if you can get a more of a variety of edge in here. Bringing in some dark here, a little bit here. Because we're going to work down on the next phase into the water again. So I'm not even going to talk about that. But see if you can, when you put that dark underneath there, I tried always to keep this dark broken up, that it's not a direct line. You have a direct line of dark underneath there. See if you can lift some of that.
Yeah, I think the paint,
Seeped around.
it slid and then it stopped. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Pull some of it up, soften it.
All right.
Because that will have a tendency of leading the eye in the wrong direction.
So should I pull it up from the water?
Yeah. Yeah, just take a damp brush and pull it up a little bit here and there from the water. Because we're going to be working with the reflection next. So I'm trying to break this down into more sections so that we're not using, you're not trying to complete a broad range of the area of the painting at one time. So I got it kind of broken down into 4 sections. Because once you get the tree trunks in, it makes more sense of the large mass that's off to the right. But that's last. So no jumping ahead, anybody.
Dale, did you kind of scrape out some of those trees along the right?
Oh, yeah, I took my fingernail while it was wet,
Uh-huh.
and I took my fingernail and just added some of the small saplings. What you can do, if you haven't done that and it's not wet, you can take your brush and you can wet the area very quickly,
Oh, okay.
and you can pull out more saplings.
Okay.
Just wet it very quickly with a damp brush, not a wet brush.
Okay.
Okay, Dale.
All right. Same thing with you, Elsie. You got that line going all the way across.
Yeah,
Soften it here and there so that we don't have a continuous line.
my favorite thing. Next to toothbrushing.
Well, I did that one painting somewhere around Christmas, about 70% with a toothbrush, spritzing everywhere.
And didn't you call it Elsie's favorite?
Yeah. I titled the painting.
I like you, Marilee. Who's that, Marilee?
Yeah.
I like you.
There's nobody else here but Marilee and Poppy
And Mike,
and Mike.
these are both.
Okay, Dale, can I show you?
Yep. We get back up on top here. I have you folks on a slide rule thing. Okay, that's much better. Now, underneath here,
Yeah.
you see this? This is going to connect down into here. You have this continuous dark here. See if you can lift up some of it right over here
Okay.
and add the yellow, orange to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you again, Dale.
Yeah. All right, much better. Now, did you spray a little bit of water up in here and lift?
No.
Okay, that's the last thing you do.
Oh.
This painting here that I did a while ago has very few sharp edges in it. You know, it's got the edges here that help lead the eye, but most of this is soft. This side in value does not equal that side in value. So I'm always looking at the variety of value, but yet a relationship, it does have a feeling it connects through here and across and back up. There are connected shapes, but there are different values that will help lead the eye. That's one of the things you always have to look at is how value changes will help move the eye through the painting along with a directional path and so forth. So I kept this painting very soft for the most part, but that's not the one I wanted to show you.
That's one of the few ones that I did that I liked, Dale.
Well,
I even have it hanging on my wall.
well, that's good. And even this one here
Where
that
did you spray the yellow in today's?
I sprayed it right in here, just the water. No yellow yet. I did spray a little bit of yellow back in here though, I think. And this one here, there's not a lot of sharp edges either. A lot of it's soft and the path helps move you back into it. I'll find that one later. Okay. Anybody else have something to show me?
Yeah, me, but just I just spritz water.
Okay, just a lift. All right,
Okay, go ahead.
that's good. This dark that's underneath here too,
Yep.
it goes all the way over. You wanted kind of this hanging down to stop it. So you have that dark running all the way underneath here. You don't want that. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Help break it up a little bit more. How you doing, Ivy?
I'm afraid it's gonna run, but
Real quick. Okay, you're fine. Put it down.
thank you.
You're good. Janet, how you doing? Don't shake your head no. All right. Okay, good. We got a little bit more red up in here, but I'm fine with that. That's not a problem. And Deborah, I checked you. Elsie, I checked you, correct? Yes. Oh, yeah, that's much better. Okay, good.
That's better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come here. Don't.
I'm not quite sure what I did, but thanks.
Well, you lifted that dark that was underneath here, so you're fine. And Judy, how are you doing?
Well, I'll show you. I tried to fix that little area there that you're
All
talking
right.
about.
Yeah, that's better. You could probably, if you want to, spray a little water on the upper half of that dark
Yeah,
and lift and leave it alone.
okay.
Okay. We're going to get into the river again. And the reflection that I'm going to start over here and I'm going to go this way. the darks in the river that are reflecting from up above will be lighter. The lights will be darker. So you have the darks getting lighter and the lights getting darker. So it reverses quite a bit. So I am going to take my smaller rosemary here, the pointed oval, my 1/2 inch, and I'm going to mix up some similar colors that are up in here with the brown matter, the yellow. So my base color will be the brown matter and the yellow. And then I'm going to mute it with a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of the ultramarine blue. A little bit more ultramarine. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, well, I think I'll take the toothbrush just with water. The reason why I'm doing this is that way it'll become more fluid in my application of the watercolor, and it will run downhill. And to make sure that it runs downhill, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add wherever it went to. Well, I'm going to put something underneath the board here so that it will have more of a angle on it. And I'm going to add water to the area here. Not a lot. And I'm going to start applying the watercolor. So I'm adding a little bit more ultramarine blue up near the shoreline here. And I'm going to add it in small spurts. I don't want to add big brush strokes up in here. I want to add smaller brush strokes. And if there's not enough movement in this, I'm going to hit it again with water. So you can see it kind of drifting down. And I'm going to take this down to here. And I'm not going to try to cover everything. I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow and the brown matter here, mix it right into here. And I'm going to put little areas of color hitting here and there. And again, I'm going to spray it with water to make this run continually. And I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine. So I'm trying to match the value and color up above here, down here in a muted fashion. Nothing fancy. I'm going to take some pure ultramarine blue and let it blend. I need a little bit more darkness in here. And I'm just allowing it to run. Now, I'm going to go to the yellow at this point and the brown or burnt sienna. And I'm going to take, which is now muted. This color right here has a feeling of the raw sienna in it. And I'm going to now wet this area here. I'm going to drop a couple or flick a couple things in here. Allow that just to kind of add accents to it. Take a little bit of this up in here. And I'm going to continue to allow this to run. Then I'm going to make sure that it sits flat after that. So I'm going to take some burnt sienna here and some of that ultramarine blue. And I want this to be off over here. So it's going to be darker over here. And then I'm going to take some of that yellow mixed up a little bit with a little bit of the brown matter. Then I'm going to make sure it lays flatter because I don't want it all running down to the edge. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the burnt sienna and the brown matter together with a little bit of that yellow, and I'm going to add it right in here. So what I'm emulating is this area right up in here down at the bottom. As you could see, I'm not worried about the green that was up there because I didn't put it in there. Now, I'm going to do a little manipulation at this point that I'm going to pull up this just a little bit and a little bit back in here. Not much, just a little bit, because if you pick up too much, it's going to be disturbing to the eye. And I'm going to pick up a little bit right in here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the yellow, some of the brown matter, a little bit more yellow. Merely be quiet. And I'm going to spritz that right in here. And I'm going to take pure yellow, pretty thick, and I'm going to go right in over here into the dark area down here. And I'm going to take some of this brown matter and I'm going to spritz this in here. And I'm going to leave it alone because the more you play with it, the more problem you can have with it. So I'm going to make sure it doesn't run. So I'm going to put something underneath the slant of the table so that it stays fairly flat. And I'm going to soak up the rest of this so that this leaching over onto the tape will not draw any more paint out away from the painting. And I'm going to watch it dry. But I will, in the meantime, add a little bit more yellow right in here. Just to add a little bit of sparkle into the water and a little bit in here and a little bit of the brown matter in over here. So we have fairly colorful water showing up. What you're seeing right in here is a reflection of the light up above. And if I can remove that just a little bit, now you're seeing more of a true color of what's going on in here. Now I'm going to leave this dry because if I play with it, I think if I, toothbrush would work. There, now it's more flat. So I have a lot of color in here, but it's not fighting with anything that's up in here right now.
Okay, recap.
Okay, so what I did is I matched the colors that are up in here, but I made the lights darker and the darks lighter. This will dry lighter on me because they always do. So anticipation will tell me it's going to dry lighter. So it's always in a reflection, the lights are darker and the darks are lighter. So it kind of reverses from what's up here. The darks are darker up here. They're going to be lighter down here. The lights.
Excuse me, did you wet that first, that water area?
No, I did not wet this. I started, well, yes, I did. I started off painting up near the shoreline. Then I took the toothbrush just with a little bit of water and I started painting the rest of it so that it flowed together.
Okay.
And then I went down from there. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to lift a little bit of light here with the sponge and a little bit here and a little bit out here, just to pick up what I'm seeing up here, down here. Just a little bit, not too much.
And the color you used on that, starting on that left side, is what were they?
They was the brown matter, the yellow medium, the burnt sienna, and a little bit of the ultramarine blue. I had more of the ultramarine blue up in here, and it was none as it came down. So it was burnt sienna, brown matter, and the yellow as it projected down. And then as I came over here, I started here with the brown matter and the burnt sienna, and a little bit of the ultramarine blue that I had up here already pre-mixed. And then I moved it over into the yellow orange, and so forth. But I'm trying to make this stay flat. I'm going to bring the lights back down so that.
You didn't use any sap green on the left over there because it looks kind of greenish.
No, I did not. The blue and the yellow created the green.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The only green that I've used out of the tray here was up in here a little bit and a little bit in here. I did not want to overpower it with green for the fact that the green that's in the photograph on the bank of the river is kind of out of sequence with the rest of the photograph. So I just gave hints of it, but not a lot of it. So it kind of, I was trying to balance off the color a little bit. Sometimes I'll leave a color out because it's out of place, and nature doesn't really make a composition and color composition always right. So you have to kind of change things up a little bit. Or correct it for the painting. But the idea is to make this look very placid down here. This is up here. You do not want to create a fight between the texture up here and down here. So you have to have places for the eye to rest, to observe it, but not stay in that place too long. So I'm balancing off the texture up here to the placid look down here. So I propped up the board at the top so it ran down, and then when I got done, I leveled off the board so we have no more running.
Source, HTTPS.
And this is where you keep your hands off the painting, because the temptation to chase the watercolor is at high risk at this point. And as a student, I was a watercolor chaser, and every time I did, I ruined the painting.
What do you mean? What?
Well, if something wasn't going right and the watercolor was moving this direction or that route, I would chase it with my brush and try to correct things, and I'd only ruin it.
Okay.
I can only tell you that I have a lot of watercolors in a landfill somewhere in south side of Chicago. But if you take your time and slow down your painting from after the first wash, slow your process down, you'll have better control over your painting than if you feel like you need to rush through things. It's not a race, so slow that process down as much as you can. Talk to yourself more as you go through the painting. Of course, if you weren't listening, you have to repeat it to yourself.
And don't laugh at yourself.
Because after this point is where you start with the detail of the painting, because all the primary masses and secondary masses are situated where they should be. And then you start adding the detail where it needs to be, very slowly. And just remember, a background, a good one, is one that stays back. Because if I add too much back here, I'll be in trouble. It'll come forward on me. Then I have to do that much more work in the foreground to push the background back again.
Can I show you, Gail?
Yeah. Okay, what I want you to do is in that dark green area here.
Yeah.
I want you to spray a little bit of water in there with your toothbrush or the spray bottle. Toothbrush would be better, and pull it up so there's a feeling of depth in there and it's not so heavy.
Oh, okay. So I'm kind of removing some of the paint then?
Yeah, you want to remove some of the paint.
Okay.
Okay, Dale, here's what I have so far. I don't know, it's
Okay,
a
good.
little wet.
That's all right. Now put it down so it doesn't run too much.
Okay,
All right, that's good, Elsie.
It's not what?
that's it?
Yeah, you're fine. So far, so good.
Am I done until next time?
Yes, you are. I don't want you to touch it.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have something to show me? Ivy? Okay, good.
Excuse me for a minute.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. That's good, Ivy. You're hold it up one more time if you could. All right. Good. Everything's in the right place.
That's about, yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. Everything's fine. It takes a while to know how to anticipate, which is something I can't teach. How to anticipate how it dries, how your
Yeah.
values come out, and every time it's a little bit different. So I put down this here and putting things down, knowing what I'm going to anticipate later on. And I'm going to go back in here just a little bit down in here to make it a little bit darker, but that's a minor thing. But there's things that I had to learn as a student that can't be taught. It's actually, you have to do it to understand it. And watercolor dries, unlike oils. When you put oils down, that's what you're going to get, or acrylics. But watercolor, it dries differently than what is when we put it down. So you're going, okay, what's it going to be when it dries?
I really liked that gouache last week because it seemed like halfway between watercolor and oil, it sort of stayed put.
Yes. Watercolor and gouache, when we taught the painting process in college, we had the students buy 1 tube of gouache and they used watercolor and they did opaque paintings, gouache paintings. So they weren't using 2 different sets of paint. And the versatility of it is great because you can add a lot of water to the gouache paint with the color and do translucent washes.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it.
And it's kind of a milky consistency, and it's a lot of fun to paint with. And I'm teaching a 1-day workshop up here locally about gouache painting and how to use it in various ways. And I do show it in my workshops occasionally here and there, especially when we're doing waterfalls and rivers and rapids. But I finally picked out the waterfalls that we're going to be doing. I like to get things set up long ahead in case there's any changes. But it's a fun method to paint. It's an older method. It's not a super popular method of painting. It's coming back in a little bit here and there, but it's a fun medium to paint because you can correct things, you can paint over things, and if you're not satisfied with it, you can actually wash the whole painting off once off the paper or board, leave it dry, and then start over again. So it does have a little bit more versatility to it than the transparent watercolor.
Here's a little story. I go to this secondhand store in Chicago, and somebody must have gotten tired of gouache because they had this for
Oh
a
my
buck.
God. Oh,
You know?
you get a deal.
Yeah, I thought, whoa, okay.
That's a real good deal.
I know.
For
I thought they must hate gouache because this is Winsor and Newton, designer gouache. So
yeah, that's some of the best stuff.
yeah,
That's the one I
every once in a
recommend.
while.
Is it zinc white, titanium, or permanent?
Blank permanent.
Okay, that's the one that I always recommend. For the most part, is the permanent one.
Yeah. Well, did you see the price?
It's hard to see here. How much?
$1. It was
Yeah,
$1.
that's good because you're
Yeah.
looking at on a larger tube like that. I think $10 to $12, something like that.
Yeah, it seemed like a deal.
Yeah, that was a good deal.
And I like that place too because all the money goes to healthcare.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah. So
That's a wonderful deal.
yeah.
Okay, Sydney, how are you doing? All right, good. Wonderful. All right, now you got that problem taken care of.
Yep.
Judy, how are you doing?
Oh, trying to remove a little green.
All right. When we go back into the painting, you see this little area that I'm I'm pointing at here?
Yeah.
You're gonna put a darker dark underneath there, a different color than the green, so that we're kind of seeing through and around the bend a little bit on the river.
All right.
But I'm gonna address this background and I'm gonna go to the foreground. I'm not gonna really touch the water. I'm satisfied with the water of just the way it moves and glows. I'm gonna do a little bit, but not much. Is there anybody else I have to look at before I start besides Janet? Okay, good, Janet. That's good. I didn't hear you. Could you speak up without the mute on, dear?
Thank you.
No, you said more than that on mute.
I said, no way.
I thought that's what you said. No, you're fine. Trust me.
Okay. Thank
Okay. I know you better than that, remember. All right, we're going to get started again. Okay. Now remember, you're handling smaller and smaller areas at this point. So that means you're going down to smaller and smaller brushes. So I'm going to start off with the number 5 brush that I have here. I'm going to start off in the background and come forward again. So I am going to take the ultramarine blue and the brown madder, and I'm going to mix up kind of a maroon color, if you want to call it that. It's a red violet, and have my paper towels ready. And I'm going to start by making this a little bit more darker in value. I'm dry brushing it in for the fact that I don't want to create any flat value. So I'm going to try to show some of the value that was originally underneath. I'm going to add a little bit more blue to this. And that will begin pushing that out. Then I'm going to move over it so it's not connected all the way. And I'm going to make this a little bit darker in here. And I'm going to kind of sneak it up into here. And I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to add some burnt sienna to this. So it's a little bit warmer, not quite as cool. And I'm going to kind of tease it up into the tree line here. So I keep on drying the brush off. And I'm going to drag it over a little bit. Go back to the violet here and put in a larger mass here. But it's all down towards the bottom, so that recesses in because it receives less light being down at the bottom of the forest. And I'm going to add a little bit of value here and there back there, not too much. Then I'm going to add a little bit more of the brown matter and a little bit of the yellow. And I'm going to tone this down just ever so slightly, teasing it into the foliage on the shore up front here. I don't want to take this all the way up because I want this just to soften and go into the rest of it there. You don't have to show all the edges to be sharp or be prominent in any way. So I'm making up a darker dark here again. And I'm going to add a couple of trees back in here. And I'm going to kind of weave it in and out of the foliage so that we don't show the whole tree. And it's just a couple little things here and there back there, because if I put in too much, again, it will come forward on me. And that's the last thing I want to happen, is something in the background flying forward and then trying to correct it later on. And I'm going to add a little bit of the brown matter and the yellow. There's a few little accents of color I want to show up back here that the light is catching just ever so softly. It's in the photograph and I feel, I'll put it in, but not too much. And a little bit of accent down towards the bottom here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but a few little accents of color down at the bottom, not too much again. Now, I'm going to come off over on the bank here. That needs to be addressed, but while I'm doing that, the bank needs to be pushed out at the end here a little bit. So I made this dark that was up in here. I'm going to darken this up. So that will show where the bank ends. And then I'll take a damp brush and kind of just sort of soften it up, bring it over. I don't want, again, to have that come forward. So I'm being very careful at this point. Now, I'm going to take the burnt sienna and the yellow, and I want to mix up basically a raw sienna. Then I want to add a lot of water to it. It's kind of a nicer raw sienna. It almost looked like a gamboge if you've ever used that color before. And I want to add a little bit more color to the bank here. And then add some darks and so forth in here. Again, if I add too much, I'll be sorry about that later on. I'm going to add a little bit more intensity up near the foliage up here. And then again, I'm going to go underneath the bank of the river here. And I'm keeping it, the line of darks here, chopped up. I don't want a continuous line. And the only water I am going to address is this water here. This needs to be a little bit darker. So I will take and darken that up. So I'm going to take the brown madder, the burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and I am going to darken this part of the river up. I'm going to take a little bit more blue here, and I'm going to add some of that dark that's in the bank here a little bit. For the only fact that it needs to have a little bit more value to it. Than what was originally put in. And then I'm going to spray it with the spray gun and let it run. Then just a little bit of manipulation for it to tease it over. And I'm going to lift out where the bank is a little bit, not too much. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up into here, into this area and work up. But before I do that, I'm going to spray a little bit of water up in here. Mostly off in this area here. If I add too much over here, it will be too much the same with texture. So I sprayed a little bit in there. I'm going to let it sit there just a little bit, and I'm going to pull out a little bit of that texture up in here, so that you're seeing a little bit more texture there, nothing back here. Okay, now go back to the smaller brush here of the rosemary, and I'm going to take the yellow, get a fairly decent looking orange. There we go. And I'm going to add to the bottom of this where less light is received and tone that down just a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of the ultramarine blue to that darker mixture up here. And I want to add a little bit of darkness down towards the bottom here, where it goes underneath the trees. So we see a little bit more shadow area. Going in between the light trees that I pulled out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift out the birch trees that are in there. Now you can start from the top and go down, or go from the bottom up. I'm going to start from the top and go down. And it should be fairly easy to lift. And the birch trees are really not going to be that white because of the color around them that is influencing them. So I'm weaving them in and out of the foliage here a little bit. Don't want to make them too distinct, but I want them to show up to a certain degree at different intervals, different thicknesses, so that they are not equally put in by any means. And I'll work on the detail of them later. And this will help break up this dark area that's down in here. And I'm putting more in than what's in the photograph, but I'm looking at how I'm placing them, that they're all a little bit different here. Now I'm going to put in some darker trees that we need to show, and I'm going to use that brown madder and the ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt sienna mixed in there. And I'm going to put in my first one right here. And one leaning out. And a couple back in here that are smaller, so they don't fight with the birches. And a larger one back in here that is just sort of there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same color and I'm going to add a little bit of detail to the birches. Not too much with the darkness on them. by just tapping my damp brush down with a darker value. I don't want to overstate these because it would be kind of silly to do that. I'm going to take some of this darker paint here and paint some negative areas in here. And I'm looking at one of those dead tree branches or whatever. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out a branch that has been bleached out by the weather here. And kind of just bring it out, and I'll finish it off with the opaque. So I repeat it, keep on doing it until I get it to its desired lightness. And I think also what I want to do is to bring down some trees that fell into the river here. All right, now I'm going to start with the white wash, very minimal. I'm going to take a picture of this portion of it though before I go any further. Oop, wrong side. Not. And clean off the rest of the palette. And I'm going to take the color first, not the white gouache. So I'm going to take the color first, find the right color. I'm going to add a little bit of the brown matter to it. A little bit more yellow. Once I get the color, then you take the white and you can add that to that. How opaque or how translucent you want it is up to you. But I'm going to start by adding up here at the top some final feeling of some of the leaves drifting over. Not too much up there. But as I come down, I'm going to be adding more to that area. And it's just a matter of dry brushing some of it, tapping the brush down just a little bit. And making the leaves with the brush, you kind of have to practice a little bit sometimes. I'm going to add a little bit more white to that.
The dreaded P word,
What's that?
practice.
Oh, that's part of the journey. It's like hunting for the right antique. The journey is half the fun. You don't need a lot, but I am going to put a few dots and dashes down here. And I'm going to make this a little bit more prevalent here, where the bank of the river's at. Again, like I said, you don't need a lot of gouache in this painting. It's a matter of a few accents of color here and there. Where you feel you need to have some sort of impact. I'm going to take my rigger brush here, and I'm going to take a little bit of white and some of the yellow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply lay it down and I'm using a lot of yellow in this because this is predominantly a yellow painting. Just to give this a little bit of lightness and feathering to it. And the same thing on the one down here. And I'm going to give a little bit of color, yellow color to the birches, a little bit in here, just a slight bit. But like I said, you don't need a lot of gouache at this point. Not as much as the one I used last week. I used a lot of gouache in it. So I'm adding a little bit of burnt sienna to this mixture. A couple of light spots came out a little bit too light, so I'm adding color to that to tone it down. And then the dreaded toothbrush, Elsie. Take some yellow, a little bit of the white, lots of water, and I'm going to hold my hand over just a little bit. I think I'll be able to do it like this. Because I'm not going to do too much more, but I want to add a little frilliness out on this edge here to draw attention. I am going to take my brush once I put it down, because the toothbrush will create a random pattern that we don't normally do too well as humans. And I'm going to work with that pattern a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the brown matter to this. And I'm going to add a little bit of that color back in here. Then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some finer branches with my rigger brush to the darker trees. Smaller saplings in between. Again, I wanted to keep this painting fairly simple, not overly done. Like the last one, I worked quite heavily on it, but it has a different look to it. And then bring out some of the saplings out into the bank here a little bit. And let's see what it looks like without the tape on. I think I've had one of the most irregular edges on this indigo paper on this sheet, as it's all gone over there. But that's easily attended to when you mat it. Lots of times when I take the tape off, I'll look at it and see what needs to be added to the painting. Because that white will help me look at it in a different way. Now, what I'm seeing here is I need to add a little bit more yellow. Got a little bit of gouache in here, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow in here, a little bit more yellow up in there. And I think I'm just going to leave it alone. Just as a simple water reflection painting. I think I'm going to take a little bit more here. I want to see the yellow come across just a little bit more. Especially up in here. And a little bit of dry brushing down here. So I'm teasing in some of the yellow at this point. And that's about where it will stay. So you guys got about 15 minutes to work.
Okay, Dale, I'm gonna cut out. I'm gonna wait for the recording.
Okay, you should be able to see the video from last week now.
Okay. All right, thanks a lot. It looks
Bye.
beautiful.
Thank you. You have a good weekend.
All right, you too.
Thank you, Dale.
You're welcome, Janet. Tell Linda hello.
I will.
All right.
See you
Bye-bye.
next week. Bye.
Let me get a photo of this. And I may do some small adjustments on it afterwards, which will be pointed out.
Normal. Everybody gone?
Okay, I'm gonna cut out too, Dale.
All right.
Wonderful.
You have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too. Stay warm.
Oh, we will.
Bye-bye, Elsie.
All
Stay.
right, see you, everybody. Bye, Mary Lee.
Bye-bye.
We're gonna have to get bigger half gallon. I remember buying them because I thought it. So I can't wrap it in bacon.
Look who just got out. Hi.
How you doing, Ivy?
I think I'll probably try it again with the video.
All right. What you need to do is make this darker over here
Okay.
and this a little bit darker here, and you'll see a big change in the painting.
Okay.
I don't think you have to start over necessarily. I might do a couple more things to this, but not too much. I like the simplicity of this one.
Am I the only one here?
No,
No.
Judy, you, and Ivy. Ivy's planning her next trip to that store where she got.
That was a fluke. They don't usually have paint.
Well, it's amazing that you can find things in a store occasionally. I always like telling the story. One of my teachers, Irving Shapiro, one of the students went to the antique street. I forgot what street it is down there. And she found one of his paintings from years ago. And she bought it for $75.
Oh.
And she was telling him, she says, well, do you have it here? And she goes, yeah. She went and got it out of her locker, showed him. And he offered her twice as much money. So he paid her $150 because as a student, you're always looking for more money to buy materials. And she never should have sold it back to him. But I went into his office later on to ask him a question, and it was in the corner of his office torn in half.
Oh, oh.
Yeah,
I know the feeling, but oh.
Yeah, he did not want it to travel any further. And I've had some paintings like that you look at and you go, no, this needs not to go out into the public eye. I understood why he did it now. Back then it was like I had my mouth hanging open.
Well, why did he sell it in the first place?
Well,
He probably thought it was good then.
at that point he thought it was probably good.
Oh,
I did a painting for my mom for an antique gilded frame of a Victorian house. Marilee's laughing in the background. I had just gotten over the flu.
Oh, you had 101 fever when you.
I had 101 fever when I was painting it. And I thought it looked fine with my crooked eyesight at that point. And I gave it to her when they stopped by from Florida on the way back up to Wisconsin here. And I looked at it when I got up there. I go, that's terrible. And Marilee looked at me and goes, I told you it was terrible. So I took it out of the frame before I left, and I left the empty frame there
On the wall.
on the wall. And my mother called me when I got home. She says, where's my painting? I said, I'm redoing it. And I redid it, and it came out a lot better. And I put it back in the next time I came up. But it was kind of funny. And I tore that one in half.
Oh, it was ugly.
It was Marilee's laughing. She says, oh God, it was ugly. But we all do paintings like that we think are good at the time, and you look at them a year later or so and they're not that good anymore because you're at a different level of painting.
Or you got your sanity back?
Yeah, or I got my sanity back, as Mary said.
Good looking.
Okay, does anybody have anything to show me before we leave?
Yeah, I'm gonna let this dry now. I'm gonna take the tape off.
All right, that's good, Judy. Keep on working on it. You want to create a little bit more interest in the background here
Okay.
by adding some more layers of color carefully,
No, it's all gone.
slowly. But it's coming along.
No.
Meant to do that.
Did you want to take a snapshot of this on the screen? I'll pull it up a little bit closer.
Yeah, yeah. Let me do that.
It always helps to have a guide if you want to continue on before the video comes out.
So yeah, I need to keep practicing.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want it? Need it?
I'm still working on mine too, but that's where I'm at.
Okay, you're good. That's coming along nice.
This is where I am.
You're coming along real good, Ivy.
Okay, well, try it
I'm real
again.
happy with that. It's not a start over, trust me.
Okay. I do like the way the water looks, especially the yellow part. You know,
Yeah, it's just a matter of the timing of the watercolor and how wet or how dry you want it. And again, that's practice.
yeah.
I can't
Okay,
tell you
well.
how many I've thrown away over the years.
All right. I bought a whole lot of paper and a lot of it's arches, so I'll be throwing a lot away.
It
So
happens. It happens. Don't worry.
we'll see ya.
It's all part of the same thing. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Dale.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Do you want to show me? You showed me, Judy? Yes? Okay. All right. We're done.